Okay, finally. It is December 19th. We're doing a live session, and this is specifically for the Patreon Breath Club. If you're there, let me know where you're coming from. Are you a member? And welcome. Guys, and let's see, I'm checking my audio. Check. Everything's coming through. Good. Awesome. Well, we've got a lot of things we're going to talk about today. Today is a really cool time because, hey, it's that first, we're pretty much, it's getting close to Christmas. We've got New Year's coming. We've got a lot of other things. And this leads me to actually one of the questions that I recently got from our Patreon members. If you are part of the Patreon club, first of all, if you're not part of the Patreon club, you can join at any time. Take a look. I think I put it in the description below, but if I didn't, all you have to do is go to patreon.com and you can find Midwestern Method. Some of you guys remember when I used to use that name all the time. But that's the last part. That's the last remnant of my old thing. It's technically my LLC. Hey, Midwestern Method. It's the Breath Club. If you just go to Patreon and look for the Breath Club with Jesse Coomer, it's there. So you can check us out. You can join for $5. It's literally $5 a month and it gets you access to all of my breathwork sessions. We're talking over 100 different sessions using a lot of different styles. It's not just the same thing over and over again. I'm always experimenting. And over the past 3 years, because it's been going on now for a little bit over 3 years, I think it's been over 3 years. Yeah, it's been over 3 years now. Over the last 3 years, I've added hundreds of sessions using like at least 30 different styles. And I've learned a lot over those few years. Actually, during that time is when I developed the language of breath, philosophy of breath work, and self-awareness. So it's really kind of interesting. It's kind of like a time capsule. You go back into the very first ones, the very first videos that I put up there, and you can see a lot of variation and change from the very beginning to where it is now. In fact, there's some of the techniques that I'll show you. Hey, here's how to do this technique. Here's how to do that technique, just to kind of get you started. So things like Kapalabhati, things like how to read breathwork notation. If you've read my first book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, that's where I go over how to read breathwork notation. So if you you can literally, it's like reading sheep music, breathwork notation. I could write it all out for one of my breathworkers. So take a look. Look at that. So this is my language of breath water bottle. So I bought this out in Colorado last time we were out doing our certification, and put a bunch of stickers on it, and they've somehow maintained their integrity over all this time. Anyway, but if you're not a part of the Breath Club, definitely consider joining today, because after this session, so I'm going to be doing a Q&A for everyone who's in the gold tier or higher. And after today's Q&A, we're going to be talking, we're going to switch over. So you don't have to go anywhere. If you're part of the Breath Club, just stick around. I'm going to be doing this. I'll tell you when it's time to go to our Zoom call, which is after this session. And we will do a group breathwork session for the holidays. Yes, I'm really in the spirit of the holidays right now. I'm literally downstairs. So sometimes you'll see me in this area. So this is my backdrop sometimes. And where this is, there's a co-working place here in town, and I love it. I get to hang out with other entrepreneurs. Actually, just a little bit ago, I was filming my next project. Yup. And let me tell you this, it does have something to do with breath work, but it's not just, it's like, it's got a different focus. Oh, yes. And I will say this, if you're in the Patreon club, or if you've taken the Language of Breath online course, you will be the first to be notified. And then also we're going to send it out if you're on my jessecoomer.com email group. But the first people to be notified, we're going to be doing a beta. So I'm only going to accept, I think right now we've decided on only accepting 25 people. And it's just a beta test to see how this, first of all, I've never taught this particular course before. So, and it's all going to be live. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, it's coming out very soon. If you're part of the Patreon club, or if you've taken the Language of Breath online course, you're going to be the first people to do it. Actually, I know some of you are in both of those groups, so that's really cool. And you'll have the first access, and there'll be an application process, and we're going to take 25 people who are really motivated, and we're going to do this. It's going to be live, but I've also done a bunch of filming. Actually, if you go to my Instagram here in a little bit, I'm going to post some of the filming, or some of the, at least pictures, some of the still shots that we did today from the filming. But we've been working on this now for 2 or 3 months, getting this new thing together, and it's pretty exciting. So it's hard for me not to share all of this, but it's worth it. I promise it's worth it. Anyway, having said that, thank you so much for being here. If you're in the Patreon club, thank you for being in the Patreon club. It's the holiday season. I'm really, really happy that you're here with me. I've got a couple questions. I didn't get a lot of questions this month from our members in the Patreon club. So I'm going to go through these, and then we'll hang out for a little while. And and if you're in the Patreon club, after we get done with this live session, we'll go to Zoom, and that starts at the next hour. So it's like a little bit after 1 o'clock right now, Eastern time. At 2 o'clock Eastern time, we will start our breath session together. So anyway, join the Breath Club. If you haven't already joined, now's a great time, because now's like kind of like maximum benefits. Because especially if you join at $10 or higher, because then you get like a bunch of stuff. So what we have right now, so the $5 is like, hey, $5, all I can afford. The cool thing is you get access to our breathwork session. You get access to the full catalog of breathwork sessions and the community. If you do $10 or higher, you get all of that. Plus you get my catalog of the breath tip of the month. So if you're really interested in continuing to learn more things about breathwork, I give you a new thing to learn every single month. If you go to the $15, I got a bunch of tiers. If you're in the $15, you get all that. Plus you get access to my 1 hour. It's not a mini course. A mini course implies that it's just like not everything you need. It's like, it's called the foundations course. It gives you all the foundational stuff for breath work. And it's really awesome. It's got its own guided sessions that are sort of separate. And then $20 is the silver tier. And from that point, you get everything. Plus you can ask questions on this, on the YouTube channel, and I'll answer them. Beyond that, there's other ones out there. But anyway, the point is there's all kinds of perks and all kinds of fun. And in a few days, I'm going to try on the first merch. So we're going to have a merch drop. Yes, it's going to be a very limited merch drop for Language of Breath. And it's going to be available in the Patreon club. So check that out. If you haven't already joined, today's a great day to join. Okay. Having said that, we've got some questions. We've got some answers. We've got some topics. The first question is, hey, guess what? It's getting to be the time of year when people start thinking about next year. And let me just say this, guys, if next year, so 2020 was a crazy year, but 2024 might just be insane, right? Who knows? The world is in a crazy place. Here in the United States, there's going to be a bunch of elections. There's just a lot of crazy things. And so I've got a lot of people, not just in the Patreon club, but a lot of people reaching out and saying, hey, what are ways that I can make it through this year and not only make it through, but really thrive? And so this is the first question from John. John, thank you for this question. John is looking to have more peace of mind and better decisions in the 2024 year. And he's just like, hey, listen, I know breath work is the key. I know that's something that I need to implement in my life. John said that he actually bought my book. So, hey, that is a step in the right direction. He bought Language of Breath. That's my most recent book. But he's like, hey, do you have any suggestions? So and the cool thing is when you're at these tiers, you don't have to actually have a clear question. It's just like, talk about this, Jesse, because the next question is not even a question. And so Mark sent in a really good one. It's one word. So he just gave me a topic to talk about, and we'll do that here in a minute. Hey, Moose Mans, happy holidays. Deb, hey, happy holidays to you. Need to Christmas over and paid need to Christmas over and paid for first a present for the dog. Well, my dog is at home right now, and I will say, so I just uploaded the 2 new breathwork sessions for the Patreon club last night or yesterday. I finished them up on my birthday. I was working on my birthday. That just goes to show you how much I love my Patreon club and also how much I love what I do. So, I was like, I want to get these up there. And the cool thing is the music on these, I actually wrote myself. It's not the greatest music in the world, but I love it. I think it's really great. And I'm working with a new audio recording program. So let me know what you think about the new audio recording quality, because I'm trying to upgrade everything for 2024. And I don't wait until the new year to do a New Year's resolution. As soon as I want to do it, I'm like, hey, let's just do it. But you can also call it a New Year's resolution. We're going to talk about that with the question I just mentioned before. Mooseman says, I still go back and use some of the old breathwork sessions, and I still get lots of benefits from them. I'm glad you do. And guess what? Some of those old ones, the reason why I haven't, some of them are just like, they're just classics. Like there's a few of them that were just perfect for the time that I created those sessions. They were going through I was going through certain things in life. The world was going through a certain change and things like that. And there are certain sessions that I don't even know if I could create again. They were just perfect for that time. So breath work, and this is what I teach, the language of breath. So the language of breath is a philosophy of breath work and self-awareness. And it's not just breath work. I don't believe that you can really, well, I don't want to go on and on. I've got to answer some questions here in a minute. But basically, I teach and I have a certification through the language of breath. So we have a breathworker school, and one of those things that we really focus on is ultimately staying in touch with that the unconscious, the voice of the unconscious. So there's a lot of things we work with. Anyway, guys, let's get into the questions. Let's get into the answers. I'll give you this. The first one has to do with New Year's resolutions, specifically living through 2024. And what's interesting is I've been getting more and more people coming up to me, and they're even saying, dude, 2024 is going to be crazy. And I'm like, okay, life is going to have a lot of stressors, right? That's never not going to be the case. And we are all in a generation that we've lived through stressors that, we didn't think we were going to live through. If you would have told me that there was going to be a worldwide pandemic in my lifetime, I mean, people did tell me that. Actually, I remember in school and things like that. It's like, well, I mean, I guess I remember watching one of those doomsday prepper shows, and there was a woman that was convinced there was going to be a pandemic. And then, of course, it says the chances are hardly, it's very unlikely. And then it happened. And then it's like, okay, great. But the thing is, the world is a changing place, and the norm of most human history has been change. And if you think about what our ancestors lived through, there's so much that is just like, we have to be adaptable. And so when we work with New Year's resolutions, one of the things I in my most recent book, The Language of Breath, I talk about is oftentimes we look at starting these patterns, like we call them routines, right? A routine makes you feel safe. That's why people tend to go to routines. It's because it makes you feel safe. I feel safe in this routine. And it's a way of not having to use conscious thinking to make positive change. So let's unpack that, because this is a really cool topic that we're talking about. And I appreciate this question. So when we have routines, the thing is, it's interesting because being bored I remember there's a Nine Inch Nails song. Of course, that might date me, right? Okay. But there's a Nine Inch Nails song that talked about, I believe that I can see the future because I repeat the same routines, right? Every day is the same, every something like that, and of course there was the movie Groundhog's Day, and there was a lot of, for a lot of time, there was a lot of, actually during the 90s, whenever you had what was it, The Matrix came out, one of the arguments was, have you ever noticed how everything seems too stable? Well, these are like, and ultimately when you feel bored, you're feeling incredibly safe. Strangely enough, it's like I feel almost too safe. There's just nothing happening to bring any kind of change and any kind of fun to my life, because we our dopamine system is seeking out some of these things, and it's like, man, just everything, I figured it all out. It's safe. And of course, we look for routines to give us that safety, and then also we look for routines so that we can reduce the strain that it takes to make good decisions. Because if I always eat this every single day, or if I always take this vitamin, or I always do my workouts at this time or that time, then I don't have to think about it so much. And I'm more likely to actually complete the tasks that I want to do to make the changes that I want to see in my life. So one of the things that a lot of people will suggest is, okay, work on your routine, because a routine is something that will likely lead you to that end result. It's likely to be the thing that's going to lead to the final, you reaching that goal that you've set for, in this case, 2024. But the thing is, I will also say, and I'm not going to disagree with that, because routines can be incredibly helpful. But I do want to say this, as if you rely on a routine, okay, so if you just rely on a routine, you can also be really thrown out of the loop once anything out of the ordinary happens. And if you're expecting the future to be ordinary, if you're expecting the future to be the same as yesterday and every single day is going to repeat, which is what a routine tends to assume, then as soon as something crazy happens, as soon as something out of the ordinary happens, everything seems to fall apart. Because now you don't have that every day is the same to rely on, right? So it's something that I like to say, okay, definitely, I don't even call them routines. I call them anchor points. It's definitely a good idea to have some anchor points, but don't look at them as things that just have to happen. Look at them as things that, okay, for instance, okay, so every morning I do this, every night I do that, is a very common routine. Well, what that does is it anchors things to certain times of day whenever you're typically free. Well, okay, so that's great. That's not bad, but life is going to change. If you've had kids, you know that there's no time that something couldn't suddenly happen. Right now, at any moment, I could get I don't know. And the point is, life gets everything. And so my suggestion to everyone is look at your life as, okay, there are anchor points. These are times that I typically will do a certain action, but never do it without thinking. Always add the element of thinking and listening to yourself. So for instance, okay, example. So that, okay, I don't want to be too esoteric here, or not esoteric. I don't want to be cryptic. So let's suppose you are doing breath work in the morning. Why? Well, okay, so some people might say, well, I'm doing it in the morning. I'm doing certain types of breathing in the morning because that's whenever I have an empty stomach, or it's because of this, whatever. But actually, you should know why. And you should also be able to listen to the unconscious self. And if you've read my book, if you've gone through my course, or if you've not, maybe you've watched some of my YouTube, please do. I sprinkle this stuff in. We have to understand that you need to, sometimes people say, listen to your body, but I think a better way of looking at it is listen to your unconscious. Listen to, because it's beyond just your body. It's also your mood. It's also your inclinations. It's also what we might consider to be our core affect. Are there needs that are not being met, or are there needs that are already met? Where are you in that contentment continuum? When you examine yourself, then you can learn, okay, well, this is the anchor, right? I'm going to examine myself multiple times in a day. And I'm not depending on I do the same action every single day, which can be good, right? But the action I do is the listening part. And then I'm going to, based off of what I know and how I have practiced, I'm going to be able to speak back in ways that are beneficial to this team that is me. Because we're not just a conscious thinking self. We are a conscious and unconscious being that has an illusory, it's an illusion, this singular human experience that we believe that we're in. We have a conscious and an unconscious that are working together. The conscious is being colored by the unconscious, all these things. So it's important to consider all those things that are working together as you go about looking for, how do I make this year my better year? And I would highly recommend just looking at yourself as that is going to add a lot of clarity to your actions. Why is it that I want what I want? We human beings are territorial. One way of saying we're territorial is saying we're egotistical, right? Our ego is our territory. Don't step on my ego, right? Don't step on my territory. Are you looking to do actions that are based off of your ego, or are you looking to do actions that are based on some kind of result that is beyond just, I want to feel better about myself? Okay. Now, it's a good thing to feel good about yourself, but you have to understand, what is the mechanism that's bringing that to pass? Am I accomplishing goals? Am I living more in alignment with my values? I would argue that that's the better one, right? Or is it that I'm feeling better about myself in comparison to other people, right? That's the territorial one. That's the one where my territory is bigger than your territory. Look at this, right? And I'll challenge everybody that's listening to examine yourself, because it's really easy. It's really, really easy to think you're doing the one and actually be doing the other. Okay. So that's some general things. Now, in the message, it was like, okay, so what are some practices I can do? One of the practices, anytime you're trying to make positive changes, and I'll get to some of these comments here in just a little bit, guys, but I do want to cover the two questions that I got from the Patreon members who sent me questions this month. Guys, if you're in the silver tier or above, send me questions. It makes my life easier, because well, it gives me something to talk about. But then again, hey, maybe we'll talk about some of these things over on the left or on the right, depending on, I guess, how your screen is set up. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. We'll answer some questions, and we'll be here the whole hour. Okay, so having said all of those things, some things that are really helpful to do: journaling. And no one wants to hear that. No one likes to hear, oh, you should journal more. But journaling is probably one of the most scientifically backed ways to establish positive changes over time. Now, I know you just wanted to hear about breath work, but listen, if you are doing breath work, the goal here is to put yourself in the right state so that you can accomplish goals, so that you can take actions in your life. It's not just to sit around getting high. Sometimes I want to get high, and that's okay. Right? Sometimes I just want to get high. I just want to feel good. And when that happens, I also want to avoid leaving myself. I want to internalize what's going on. I want to be more present, even whenever I'm doing something just for the sake of feeling good. But when it comes to saying, okay, I want to make some kind of a positive change in my life, the idea here is that when you're journaling, you're taking some things from an unconscious space and you're putting it into a conscious space. You're forcing yourself to become more aware of your feelings, your emotions, why, kind of bring the why out. Why am I making this change? Why am I doing this? Right? You're doing those things, and you're able to see it. Now, you may not ever read your journal entries ever again, and that's fine. You don't have to read those journal entries, but the goal here is, the main thing is, if you're journaling, that means at some point during the day, each day, you sit down and you consciously think about your conscious and unconscious processes. You consciously think about, am I living in accordance with my values, which is typically what we're trying to do, or am I not living in accordance with my values? Am I in alignment with the person that I want to be, or am I not in alignment with the person that I want to be? And that in itself is, that's its own form of therapy, right? So, which, hey, we all we need that sort of thing. And I will say, in my own personal life, I have overcome some crazy, terrible things, right? I have made some major changes in my life. And one of them, if you're not a regular fan here, if you don't know all about me, if you haven't read my first book, one was that I got high once for 10 years. So I was an opioid addict, and that was a trip, right? And I will say that the thing that helped me make the change the most was the fact that I had an everyday journal practice. I didn't know about breath work. I didn't know about cold or heat, or I didn't know about anything like that whenever I was coming out of my addiction. This has been like over 13 years ago, right? I didn't know anything about that. In fact, it was as I was coming out of those things and looking for ways to and I didn't know this. I couldn't have, there's no way I could have intellectualized this at the time. I was looking to have a better relationship with myself. I was looking for a way to have some peace in my life. That's what led me to breath work, right? That's what led me to all these other things. So, I would say journaling is a huge, huge way to keep yourself on track. And even if even if you like, getting a coach is a great way to do that. I'm a mindset coach. I have clients. I'm taking on some new clients after the first of the year. If you're interested in working with me, I have just 2 slots left. But the thing is, I don't try to maximize my slots. Like, I don't try to max out all the time. And the biggest reason for that is because it is a huge drain, because I care about my clients. And, it takes a lot of time to work with human beings. You got to work with them one at a time. You got to get to know people. You got to get understanding. And it takes time. Anyway, the point is, even whenever I'm coaching a person and I'm holding them responsible and we're having regular meetings and I'm giving them coaching and they're giving me feedback and and we're going through some talk and we're going through some breathwork sessions and things like that, I still have them journal every day, because there's going to be things they don't want to tell me. So if you're working with a coach, journaling is a great thing. It's like you've got another coach, because at least there's somebody, it's your journal, it's yourself, that you're being honest with. And you're going to be more honest. You can be more honest if you're speaking to yourself. We're also the easiest. What is it? Richard Feynman. He says human beings is, the easiest person to lie to is yourself. But it's also a matter of, if you're genuinely trying to seek positive change, if you're genuinely trying to seek a better life, being honest is the first step, and journaling is a great way to do that. Now, having said that, when it comes to breath work, when it comes to cold exposure and all these things, of course, during this time of the year, if you're in the northern hemisphere, you're having at least some really good cold exposures right now. We just had an Arctic blast in the Midwest, so it's below freezing outside. So the cold plunge is extra nice. Actually, side note, my 8-year-old loves cold plunging. Like, there's some nights that I'm just kind of not in the mood. And he's like, "Hey, can we go out and jump in the cold plunge?" And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I should be doing that. And so he's been doing a great job. Anyway, so journaling and doing anchor points. So we're not talking about necessarily set routines, but anchor points. These are the times I check in with myself. That would be the thing I would say, if it is a routine at all, that would be it. I'm checking in. I'm seeing what I need. Where am I? Where am I psychologically? Where am I physiologically? How am I looking at things? And just genuinely being honest with yourself. That's what's going to lead you to those changes that you want to do. And then, of course, you have to commit. You have to commit to making those changes. And you have to understand that you can only white knuckle it so much. So don't expect to be able to suddenly change something huge. White knuckling is conscious control. You cannot do that for that long. You have to teach the unconscious part of you to be on board, because white knuckling is your conscious self fighting the unconscious you. And when that happens, as soon as you're not 100% strong in the conscious space, the unconscious is going to say, no, we're going to go back to those old patterns. We're going to go back to those old behaviors and those limiting thoughts. And so really, be good to yourself and understand that you have to teach the unconscious you how to do these things. Okay, before I get to my next question, I do want to address some of these here. Oh, Deb's tired. Well, over across the pond, I bet it's later, right? What is it like? Well, it's only 6:30 over there. Now, in Europe, times people use what we call military time over here. So I guess it wouldn't be 6 o'clock. It would be what, 18 o'clock? So, it's not that late. Let's see. Paul says, Jesse, this is not the greatest song in the world. Yes. When I go karaokeing, it's a lot like you're going to go karaokeing with Jack Black. And I think karaoke is one of the greatest pastimes ever invented. In fact, I used to, in grad school, we were broke as broke can be. The only reason I was able to go to grad school, I got a scholarship. I was a student teacher. And so if you're a student teacher, you get your graduate work. I had what is called an assistantship. And basically as an assistant teacher, but they put me in charge of multiple classes. Like, it wasn't like there was a main professor and then I assisted the professor. No, they said, this is your class. and I was responsible for teaching these people. And so it was really great, actually, for my confidence and for my education. It wasn't great pay. I mean, we were broke. And so what we would do is we would go to this dive bar that also had karaoke, but the beer was cheap. And that's how I got through grad school. All right, let's see here. Autumn Bloom. Hey, Andre, thank you so much. Autumn Bloom. That one was one of my favorites to create too. Andre is talking about session, and in the Patreon club, like whenever I create these sessions, there's a name to them. So it's science and art. That's whenever I train the language of breath workers, I always tell them, guys, breath work, if done right, it's a perfect blend of art and science. You combine the two things. You can get way too far off on just the science. And the problem is if you don't have a creative way of looking at this, you can't actually see application. This is the funny thing. This is the interesting thing that I found. If you only look at the research, then you've got to be able to you have to be able to creatively observe research and connect the dots yourself. And so that's what I train my breath workers to do. So thank you so much for the compliment on Autumn Bloom. That was one of my favorites too. Oh, snooze! Moose fans like snooze. So for those of you who are not in the Patreon club, snooze is another one. I'm so glad you like that. So there are sessions that are kind of dedicated to certain things. Like some of them are dedicated to helping you go to sleep. Some of the sessions are dedicated to, like, we have some of them that are like, hey, you know what? You're at work. You're not a smoker, but hey, you get 5 minutes break or whatever, whenever the smokers do. Here, take a 5-minute reset. Boom. And you're going to feel really good. Right. So we have a lot of different ones like that. Oh, man. Let's see here. And Moose Fans, you're right. Change is one of the fundamentals of the universe. Athletic intelligence. What impact has COVID had on the qualities of breath work? Had it in November of 2022. Feel like I have less capacity. Yeah, there's actually depending on the case and the severity. There's of course a lot of people have long COVID. I've treated, or I've coached a lot of people with long COVID and was able to coach them and help them get through that. And it's not just COVID. There's a lot of people even before the pandemic that I would coach that had just a really bad sinus infection. And hey, I was able to run this fast of a mile before this really bad sinus infection. I can't seem to make it that fast anymore. Help me out, right? Oh, I got bronchitis really bad. We have to understand that our lung capacity can be affected, but it can also be constrictions in the breath pathway. You can have dysfunctional breathing patterns. There's all sorts of things that might play a role. And we have to also understand that breathing is a psychophysiological act. It is not just something that is just a physiological thing that, okay, there's a breath, there's a gas exchange and that is why we breathe. No, it's connected to our psychology and physiology very profoundly. Thank you for that question. I guess I need to get to the other question. The other question in just a minute. It wasn't even a question. It was just a topic, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Yes, Chris, future language of breath worker. Awesome. Yes, every day is exactly the same. What was it? There was some kind of a movie that they played that in a lot. It was like, I forget what it was. It was full of violence, but oh man. Let's see here. 9 Inch Nails, Paul. Yes. Let's see. Stress promotes change and adaptation. This is true athletic intelligence. And then let's see. If it becomes a fixed routine, you'll not be listening and open to deeper understanding. Yeah, exactly. And stay curious. I like that. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. You want to be curious. When you approach life with curiosity, you're not blindly going through your routines, and you're more likely to pick up on things that you would normally ignore. Rusty Games is here. What's up, bro? It's nice to have you here, my friend. Let's see here. Deb says, I never understood the whole New Year's resolution thing. Well, okay, Deb. If you want to start or stop doing something, do it as soon as it pops in your head. No arguments there. I think the big thing is, so I've been on both sides of this argument before, so I completely understand what you're saying, Deb. I think though that it's kind of it's an opportunity to examine yourself whenever the calendar changes. It's this thing where it's like I think that I think the ideal behind it, like the concept of, hey, I would like to make this change. 2024 is my year. I think that's kind of it's an opportunity to say, okay, this will mark the point in history when I made that change. I agree with you. Typically, what I really hate to see is a person saying, my New Year's resolution is going to be to do X, Y, Z. And then, but I'll wait until then, right? Tomorrow creeps out life's petty pace and all our yesterdays. Huh? Anybody know the rest? Very well. No Shakespeare. Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, but the thing is, what we will have is we'll push these things off, and then we'll never actually get it done. And I think you're right there. And so definitely. But here's one thing I will say: if you got a resolution that you'd like to make, I would say I'm going to make this resolution. January 1st is going to be whenever it officially starts, but I'm going to unofficially start the moment that I really know I want to make that change. It's kind of like whenever I turn a new age. So my birthday was yesterday. And so, hey, thanks for everybody. For those of you guys who were on the live yesterday, some of you guys got to hear some dad jokes. Most of the dad jokes were near the end of that, of that live. Some of you guys got to hear me. I sang a song. What song did I sing? The Pixies. Baba Geek was there for some dad jokes. He and I appreciated those. So, but well, let's see. I don't know where I was going with that, but hey, yeah, thanks for being with me the other day. Here's where I was going with that. So whenever I am about to turn an age, like I just start referring to myself as that age for months in advance before I actually turn that age. And then whenever I turn that age, it's not like it's not like it's a surprise or a change. It's just like, okay, now I'm actually that age. I've been practicing being that age for a while. Now I'm actually that age. I think it's similar. I think if you want to do a New Year's resolution, I think you should start trying to make changes, small little changes, so that by the time January 1 rolls around, you're already in progress. You've already made a significant or at least a little bit of progress. So you don't feel like you're starting from square one. Sad thing is, what a lot of people will do, they'll start a New Year's resolution, and the classic thing is fitness and all this stuff. And but then they get drunk on New Year's Eve, and then New Year's Day, they're just hungover. And so it's like, well, I guess I'll start on New Year's, or I'll start on January 2nd. And, it's just like, it just doesn't coalesce. It never manifests itself. So I'm 100% with a person who says, hey, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution, but definitely start. I'm with you there, Deb. Start as soon as you feel that inclination. And then you can say, well, I can mark my calendar now that I've started. All right, let's see here. Jesse, as you well know, writing is a way of thinking. Yes, exactly. This is another thing. Thank you so much. I'm assuming that comment was based off of what I was talking about earlier, which was journaling. Journaling being a wonderful mechanism, a beautiful vehicle for self-awareness and positive change. And this is why writing is so important. It's so important to learn how to write and to just practice it. And it's not like you have to have an audience, but when you put things in, when you actually are able to write, you can even edit your thoughts in many ways, and you can hold thoughts in place and make changes if you want to. It's a fantastic tool. Some people call it a psychotechnology even. It changed the course of human thinking forever. So it is. I thank you for bringing that up, Moose Mans. Often you discover something as you write it out, he says, and that's absolutely true. Often, I don't know how many times I've done that. I think I've written almost 3 books. So just to kind of give you an idea, in April of next year, I'm going to be releasing. I'll finally be releasing a practical guide to cold exposure, rewritten. I mean, I would say at least 50% of the book is completely new material. You can buy the ebook right now on my website. If you do buy the ebook on my website right now, you get a free update. So whenever I bring it out, you get it free. The new version you'll get for free. So that way you have the old version to compare how bad the first one was versus the second one. I'm keeping the jokes. Okay. I may be adding more jokes into it. This book, it's going to be self-published. So it might actually be like, I may actually have a joke to start every chapter out. I'll have a dad joke at the beginning of every chapter to kind of set the mood. I don't know. Anyway, whatever he says, whatever helps people try to become better, I say, let people do it. This is Rusty talking here. But no matter what, it's often never about completing the goal. It's about the journey it sets us on. I like that. Yeah. One of the things that we can oftentimes get into the habit of is the hedonic treadmill. If you've never heard of the hedonic treadmill, ultimately it is this concept that I will be happy when I achieve this goal. And then I'll be happy when I achieve that goal. And then you achieve that. And then I'll be happy when I achieve this goal. And then you achieve that. And then you never actually get to be happy because it's always about achieving the next goal. Goals are important and they're absolutely necessary. But I don't even know if goals are that necessary. Goals are important. You don't have to have them as long as you have values that you behave in accordance with those values. You're going to set yourself on a direction, right? Sometimes when we have too hard set of goals, we will ignore all the other good things that we could have in life because we're just focused on that one thing. So anyway, I digress. The last thing, and then I got to take a quick break, and then we're going to, then everybody in the Breath Club, meet me over in the Zoom at the next hour. We got about 15 minutes before that starts, and I need a quick break before that starts. But the last one I will talk about is it was just a message. It wasn't a question mark or anything at the end of it. It just said Buteyko. Okay. So apparently he wanted me to talk about Buteyko. So I will talk about it. So Buteyko, the Buteyko method originated, it was named after Konstantin Buteyko. He was a Russian physician who was a very good physician. He looked at everything as very mechanical. And if you know anything about language of breath, I don't think it's a great way to look at the human being as a machine, but that's how he looked at it. And I'm not going to say, I can't say a whole lot bad about him because he did figure out a lot of things about how breathing works and how CO2 is ultimately how, if we slow our breathing down, we can improve our health. And he cured his hypertension. So he had hypertension, and according to what we know, he cured his hypertension using slow breathing, functional breathing, but slow breathing, and ultimately with a breath hunger. So he basically was the kind of the innovator that led us to what we know now as CO2 tolerance training. So, and one of his students was Patrick McKeown, who is the founder of Oxygen Advantage. He took a lot of Buteyko's ideas and applied them to sports. Buteyko, Konstantin Buteyko, he had a crazy, awful life. Everybody's trying to kill him all the time. And actually, I did a video on this. I think it was my first video that was sponsored by Magic Mind. So this is like 2 years ago, and I did a whole video on him. So if you want to find out more about Konstantin Buteyko, watch that video. But basically, the biggest contribution, he wasn't right about everything he said, but his biggest contribution was the fact that slow breathing with an emphasis on elevating our CO2 levels in our blood is going to ultimately have positive results for our overall health. And so that led to a lot of what we know now about how breathing actually works. And it was something that was met with a lot of scorn and ridicule because you can't make much money off of slow breathing. There are people like his competitors, they were trying to cure asthma. And one guy, like one of the leading scientists in Russia at the time, said, what we need to do is take the person's lungs out of their body, wash them off, and then put them back in. That's what he was up against. Like, and there was so much money in it, and then like there's all kinds of these assassination attempts on Buteyko. So now I went through a lot of, so I did all the certifications. So earlier on in my breathwork career, I did all these certifications. I did the Buteyko certification. And, there's a lot of good stuff that has come from that, especially in the modern day world of Buteyko. Modern Buteyko practitioners are, I really, really, I feel like I respect them, and they can do the world a lot of good. In fact, generally it's Buteyko or Buteyko-ish, like CO2 tolerance training is what I've used with people who have had long COVID, a lot of those issues where they've lost a lot of their athleticism due to an infection like bronchitis or something like that. We just, what we do is we slow down their breathing, and we start to see big changes. Now, does that mean it's the greatest and the only one you should ever do? No. There's, as with everything, there's more complexity to just one simple trick, and it fixes all your problems. But Rusty, you should do a video on him with lots of great edits. Yes, I already. yeah. Maybe I should do a video on him with some good edits, Rusty. Maybe I should go back. You know the video I'm talking about. Anyway, if you're more interested in Buteyko or Buteyko method, I do have a video, and I even take you through what I would consider the standard Buteyko technique, a breathing session at the end of that video. So you get a little bit about Constantine Buteyko. You also get an actual guided session. If you're in the Patreon club, you also already get a lot of CO2 tolerance training sessions, and you can look at those as well and benefit from the lineage that we get from that started with Constantine Buteyko. It hasn't finished yet. It's not over yet. We're still learning about the relationship with CO2 and really what that has in store for our overall health when it comes to breath work. But yeah, that is ultimately the lineage that we get from Constantine Buteyko that we can enjoy to this day. Guys, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Zoom. If you are in the you want some jokes at the beginning of this breathwork session? I love this tribe. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll turn the Zoom on. If you're in the breath club, go ahead and you can hop on. It'll take a minute before I'm able to let you in. I need to go get some more water and stuff. And so, but you can hop over there. We'll start in just a little bit. If you haven't joined the Breath Tribe yet, go to patreon.com, look for the Breath Club with Jesse Coomer. It's also patreon.com/Midwestern Method. And it's only $5 to join, and you can enjoy a session with us. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. I want to thank everybody for all of your comments. I want to wish you a happy holiday season. This is just my favorite time of year. Of course, I just had a birthday yesterday. Christmas is like just next week. Then New Year's, everything. It's just awesome. So go listen to some Christmas music. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll hope to see my tribe. I'll see you guys in a breathwork session in just a minute. All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.